Welcome to the Harmony in a Hurry podcast. We are Caroline and Anna, mindfulness enthusiasts, exploring ways to weave a little bit of mindfulness into our busy routine. Today we are speaking with Dr. Gina Clio, a world-leading expert in habit change with a PhD from Bond University, where she's now an assistant professor. She's the founder of the Habit Change Institute and author of the best-selling book, The Habit Revolution. Dr. Clio has transformed cutting-edge research into practical strategies that help people create lasting change in their health, productivity, and lifestyle habits. I hope you enjoy. Dr. Gina Clio joining us on the podcast. Thanks for being here today.
Such a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And the first question that we ask all of our guests is, what does mindfulness mean to you?
This is actually a really hard question. It seems like it would be such a simple answer, but to reflect on what it means for me, I had to really sit with it. And I think mindfulness to me is the pause between wanting to do something and doing that thing. It's the space between the trigger and the response. It's where we actually get to choose what we want to do rather than just react. I think also from a habit perspective, which is where my brain always goes, our habits are mindless and they're very automatic. So I think mindfulness for me is being intentional rather than being an autopilot.
Mm-hmm. And do you have a set practice that helps you stay mindful, or it's something that you kind of evolved and is your way of living anyway?
Yeah, I mean, I have a few things that I do intentionally, but a lot of the mindfulness that I do is kind of in the moment. So, for example, when I'm in the shower, I try to be really mindful and just be present in the moment to really notice what the water feels like on my skin, what the soap smells like. I try to create a really sacred space where I've got, a few minutes in the morning where I'm trying not to think about the next thing that I need to do. I also do 5 big breaths when I sit at my desk. But most of the time, I'm just interjecting mindfulness throughout my day. Like if I'm picking up my phone, I just check in with myself before I do that. What am I feeling? Why am I doing this? Do I even have notifications I need to check? Or the same thing before going for a second helping of food. It's like, why am I here doing this? So it's more those little check-ins that I like to do with myself that I would think have the most impact in terms of mindfulness in my life.
Mm-hmm. And did that take you a while to develop that as a practice for yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah. I am not naturally a mindful person. I mean, I have ADHD, so I am naturally extremely impulsive and reactive. And so mindfulness has absolutely been a journey, a practice, a process of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, of really being intentional, of noticing how it benefits my life and serves me, and then continuing to practice it until it's become more natural now.
Did you find for you, because we've spoken to other people with ADHD as well, that some of your practice involves moving your body as well? Or have you got to the space where you're able to sort of keep your body still in a way and then work the mindfulness in? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it depends, to be honest. I do find that like shaking out the jitters definitely helps, like when my mind is being overactive or racy. And so if I'm active, it helps. But I have definitely come to a place where I can be still and practice that mindfulness. I'm not very good at sitting and meditating for half an hour, for example. You won't see me sitting on, a cushion with my legs crossed for that long. But I would say that, practicing mindfulness all throughout my day has given me so much benefit that I'm pretty stoked with that.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
And one of the things that you mentioned, and one of the things that I got from your book, is that intentionality and that watching what we're doing. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that comes into play?
Yeah, it's funny because when we're making decisions, we often think that we're weighing up the pros and cons and we are intentionally deciding what's going to be good for us. But actually, most of the time, what we do is just what we do most of the time. And only sometimes do we do something different. most of the time we're making decisions based on what we've already done. What's going to be the easiest, most convenient, the path of least resistance thing. We naturally, as human beings, seek pleasure and avoid pain. So that's going to be just doing what we've always done. And that's when we get into this autopilot. And research shows that up to 70% of everything we do every day, that includes what we do and how we feel and what we think and how we react, is on autopilot, which means we are not mindful for the majority of the day. And that's where mindfulness and, injecting those moments of checking in can make all the difference, not just to what we do, but also to how we think, what we believe, how we respond to things. And so that's really that part of my book where I talk about that space between getting triggered to want to do something and actually doing something. There's a space there, and all it takes is just a moment to just pause and be mindful, and then we can make the more intentional and the better decision.
It's a bit scary to know who's on the driver's seat when 70% of what we're doing is not us consciously doing it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like we think that we're driving, our behaviors, but oftentimes we're not, unless we're in a radically new environment. We see that people change their behaviors most radically when they've, say, started a new job, moved cities, changed relationships, etc., because our environment drives our behavior. But if we're in the same environment, which means we live in the same place, we're going to work or doing the same things, we are going to default into autopilot.
Is that why then, besides the pain of a breakup or things like that, if you move like locations and have changed jobs, all those big things, is that why sometimes you can feel, even if you want it, you feel so lost and untethered because that anchor of being habitual is gone in that moment?
Totally. Yes. And even if we want to do those things, like say you want to move to a new city, for example, it still requires a lot of cognitive resource for you to do that. What we take for granted is right now, say you've been living in the same place for 6 months or more, you know your way around the streets, you know where your local supermarket is, you know where your favorite cafe is, you even know your way around the supermarket. You probably know some shortcuts to get around to places, and this all takes away mental load. Whereas when you're in a new city or a new place or you've just had a breakup, everything is different. Everything requires you to think about it and to focus on it and to navigate it and make decisions about it. When I've had breakups before, what I've realized is I'll go do the grocery shopping and I'll come back with all this food and I'm like, okay, I've just bought food for 2 people. And I've also bought all this food that I don't even normally eat. This is just what my ex used to eat. And I've just done it automatically. And so everything changes. We even have to learn how to just cook for ourselves. Like, what do I want to eat tonight? What do I want to get from the grocery store? How do I want to shop? How often do I want to go grocery shopping? Everything changes, and that takes a lot of mental energy. Our nervous system will be more activated, even if they're positive changes. It's still energy that we're using up. Our brain uses about 20 to 25% of our energy or our calorie intake for the day. And we see that it's even more through times of change or times of stress, which is why in moments of high stress, I actually don't recommend for people to try to change their habits in those times.
The other year, I moved up from Adelaide to Port Macquarie. And what you said just makes so much sense because it was painful. We made the choice that we moved. So, new job, new house. My daughter moved out. I just turned 50.
Yeah.
And it was not just leaving the family, like we were just felt untethered, and it was really difficult because we had no reference points, and just what you said then has just made it all click into place. I'm like, oh, well, that makes complete sense to me now, why it was so huge.
Yeah. Oh, it is huge. We are the most comfortable in familiarity. And like you could do a whole podcast just on that. In, say, for example, somebody who grew up with an alcoholic parent and they grow up and say, I don't want to be an alcoholic. I'm never going to be that person. And they either become an alcoholic or they marry an alcoholic or like get with an alcoholic. And it's not because they want that, but it's because that's what's familiar. That's what their nervous system sees as normal and safe. And it's on a level that we don't, it's not a logical thing. But, familiarity is the most comfortable thing for our brain. And any lack of familiarity is challenging. From the trivial things like trying a new food that's unfamiliar and it's weird and it makes us uncomfortable, all the way through to changing your environment radically, like moving cities, it's massive. And it takes months for that to become your new normal, for that to become your new familiar comfort. It takes a really, really long time.
Mhm. That's what we said, better the devil you know, and then the problem is that the devil you know might not be letting you be who you need to be.
Until you become aware why it is this pattern is happening. And that's so powerful. That awareness piece is everything, because you can say, this only feels safe because my nervous system recognizes it. It's not because it's good for me. It's not because it's healthy or it's what I actually want. This doesn't even align with my values. And so I can rewire that and create a new normal. And that's the grind, right? Like that's the getting up, being uncomfortable, sitting with the discomfort and pushing through it until the brain rewires into, finding what's a new comfort, a new familiar.
It's almost like you have to have your strategies in place to wrap yourself in a hug while you're sitting with the discomfort. So then you can create that change, even though you know it's what you want. So you just have to learn to hold yourself steady and build that resilience.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
knowing that it's going to be uncomfortable and expecting it is actually really empowering, rather than like being like, I'm going to move to a new city. It's going to be so exciting and I can't wait. And it's like, yeah, like all of that is amazing. I want you to be super pumped about it. But I also want you to know that there's going to be moments that absolutely suck. Like it's going to be really challenging and it's going to feel so lonely and you won't know why. But this is why, because familiar isn't there anymore. But know that the discomfort comes and goes, just like anything. It all passes and it's very temporary. And every day is going to be different. There are going to be days where you get up and you want to kick ass, and that's great. Go for it. But there are going to be days where all you have is just a walk around the block or a 5-minute walk. And do that. It's better doing that than doing nothing. So, yeah, I mean, I think I'm a big believer at working at your capacity, and that requires a lot of mindfulness, a lot of checking in and honoring your body and your mind. I've had many days where I've gone to the gym and I've gone, you know what? Not today. I just don't have it in me to do the workout that I intended. So I'm just going to do a gentle walk, and that's okay.
Can you take us through the process that someone should take to be as successful as possible in changing that habit, whether it's introducing a new one or refraining from one that you think is not so good for you?
Yeah. So the steps to create a new habit is firstly decide on the habit that you want to change. I always like to tell people to think about why that's important to them. And oftentimes I find people are doing it because someone else is doing it, or they saw someone on social media say it was a good idea. So now they want to do it, but it doesn't actually align with their values or it being important to them. So really like sit with this new habit. Why is it that you want to do it? How will it benefit your life? And then with that habit, you got to think of a few little steps to take to get you closer to that. So say the new habit that you want to do is go to bed earlier. You want to go to bed an hour earlier. The steps that you might do to achieve that is you might set an alarm to remind yourself to go to bed a bit earlier. You might turn the lights down a bit earlier. You might change some of your social life, drink your caffeine a bit earlier, like cut out alcohol. There's all these things you could do. So just pick one or two of those things and practice it. Just keep doing it consistently until that feels more automatic and habitual. And I would use a habit tracker. So every time you've done that new habit, make sure to tick off on a tracker that you've done it. That gives us a little boost of dopamine, which feels great. And it reinforces the behavior. It makes us want to do it again and again. Now, once that starts to feel automatic, that's when you can bring in another behavior to achieve that overall goal.
So, what brought you to this work? Because this is not how you started your work life, is it?
No, it's not at all. I didn't even know anything about habits when I first started my career. So I started as a dietitian, and I'm a big time foodie. I'm Egyptian by background, so like food is a really big deal in my culture. And I loved what I did, but I did find that oftentimes we don't have a knowledge problem, we have a behavioral problem. And on a personal note, I didn't know I had ADHD until last year. And so I really struggled with my own behavior. I struggled with impulsivity and I struggled with consistency. Oh my goodness. I would say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to get up and I'm going to exercise. And I would get up and I would scroll on Facebook Marketplace for 2 hours instead. And I do this over and over again. And I was so frustrated with myself. And so I started doing heaps of research into the brain, into why we do the things we do, into why some people are really motivated and others aren't, why self-control fails us and what to do instead. And so through, my curiosity for, I guess, a journey of self-discovery, but also to help my clients and my patients, I then signed up to do a PhD at Bond University to really study the brain and to understand this idea of sustainable behavior. So that's how I came into habits. And then I had a bunch of research published. And through that is, I guess, how I was discovered. A lot of companies wanted me to speak at their organizations or to write programs for them. And it kind of just snowballed from there. And it's been, 8 years now of just doing habit change work.
And another thing that we hear is a lot of the times we punish ourselves and we say, oh, I need to be stronger. I need to be. Can you talk about why willpower is not the magic bullet that we think it is?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked this, Anna, because we do find that there's all this messaging around, go hard or go home. If your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. And there's this idea of having to just push and grind. And I speak to so many people that are like, I wish I was more disciplined. I wish I had more self-control. I just maybe don't have enough willpower. That's why I can't achieve these things. And it hurts my heart because that's actually not how our bodies and our brains work at all. Willpower is very much a finite resource. We don't have unlimited amounts of it. So think of it like a muscle. And let's say you're doing some bicep curls at the gym, eventually your arm's going to get sore and you're going to need to put the dumbbell down, rest your arm before you can do another set of lifts. And willpower works in much the same way. It gets exhausted throughout the day. The more decisions that you make, the more exhausted it gets. The more negative interactions, if you're sitting in traffic, there's food around that you might not want to be eating, you've had a crappy night's sleep, you're anxious about something, there's any kind of negative emotion, all of these things deplete our willpower. And that's why you might find that you might be more motivated earlier in the day compared to later in the day when your willpower and your energy is sort of depleting. And the only way to bypass the need for willpower is through habits, because no matter how tired, hungry, stressed you are, let's say you will always put your seatbelt on in the car because you don't need to think about doing it. It's a habit. And that's why habits are so powerful. It's because they don't need willpower. They don't need self-control. They happen automatically. And so if we can get our health and wellness to a state that doesn't require willpower, that's the magic. That's how we live consistently healthy and happy lives. And this is one of my peeves, I guess, with something like a New Year's resolution, where there's this assumption or hope or optimism that we're going to have more energy, we're going to be more motivated, and we're going to have more time. But that's not true. You're going to wake up on the 1st of January or on Monday or the day you get back from holiday or whatever your goal is. You're going to be just as tired, just as time poor, just as busy with things.
I guess the same way that we are on automatic pilot for the wrong things. We could try and make ourselves, it's almost like tricking your brain into being into automatic pilot for the right things.
Mm. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's
Yeah.
what it is. And it's not even tricking your brain, it's just training it. I
Mm.
wake up every morning and I move my body. And if I don't, I feel icky. That was never me before. I used to just like grind myself to get myself out of my bed and move my body. And now I can't imagine a world where I don't get up and move my body because it's just habitual.
Excellent. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you think would be important for people to understand in regards to how to change your habits or how to become that more intentional person?
I think self-compassion is a really important piece when we're making any change. It's so natural for us to fall back into our old habits because our brain is designed to preserve energy. And preserving energy means doing what we've always done because change requires energy. And so just notice it. Notice why you've fallen back into an old habit. Be mindful of your triggers, but just have the self-compassion and know that change isn't easy. It is very much a process of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's not a matter of if you fall off the wagon, it's when you fall off the wagon. And I hate saying that, but it's true. Expect it, plan for it, and be so okay with it. Just radically accept the fact that we are all flawed human beings, and self-compassion is what's going to get you through rather than self-criticism. Really focus on progress, not perfection.
That is a hard one to learn. It's so easy to say, I should have, I could have, why didn't we? Rather than say, look, you know what? Today is not the day.
Yeah. We're humans, we're not robots. We're driven by our emotions, which are going to be different every day. We're driven by our environments and things happen. I often work with people, especially with women who might be carers. And I say, "Hey, your kid's been sick this week. Of course you don't have the same capacity that you did last week. You haven't been sleeping well. Your mind has been elsewhere. I mean, why is it that you expect to be the same before your child was unwell? It's crazy because you wouldn't expect that from someone else. But yeah, we do have those expectations of ourselves. Yeah. And that is the definition of self-compassion. It's taking away that I should have done this or I should have the capacity to do that. It's like, no, whatever state you're in right now is okay. It's completely acceptable. And it's just today. It's not going to be the same every day, but that's just where we are now. And as long as you're just giving your best, whatever best that is today, then you've absolutely nailed the day.
Oh, I like that. I'm going to take that one.
There's a really great book that you might enjoy. It's called Self-Compassion by Dr. Kristin Neff. She is like, I guess the founder of self-compassion to like the Western world. She's the one who kind of brought the topic of self-compassion out of research and into the hands of everyday people through her book and her courses. And she has a lot of content, but she is amazing. And the way that she describes self-compassion in her book is so compelling. And it just convinces you that this is a way better idea than what society is telling us to do, which is like always like push 110% and all this sort of macho talk that's so unrealistic.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to look that book up. Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure, of course.
But on that note, it's been fantastic and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
And that's it for us for today. As always, in the show notes you can find more about Dr. Gina Clio, her courses and her book, and of course about ourselves. If you found this episode interesting or it helped you in any way, please share it around so we can reach more people. See you in the next episode.